Dart seems to have more love in the draft community than Milrow, but Milrow was invited to the draft, so I could see his name being called on night one. I think the fact that they worked with Fields could speak to their ability to use a rushing quarterback. Hey guys, welcome back to our final NFL mock draft, released, of course, the day before the actual NFL draft. We'll see how accurate we can be in this prediction of what will take place tomorrow. But we're going to start things off with me taking pick number 1, baby. First time all year that I've done it. And we've got the Titans taking Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, yet again. At this point, the pick is in. Cam Ward has likely already been sent a playbook and already knows his jersey number, gearing up to move to Tennessee. The Titans are going to move on from the failed Will Levis experiment and try something new with the top quarterback in this class. Quarterback's an important position, and Cam Ward is the best in the class.
Yeah, Treylon Burks is his favorite wide receiver, so I think he's kind of set up for success, going exactly where he wants to go in Tennessee. But that leads us to pick 2 with the Browns, who we have selecting Travis Hunter out of Colorado. He plays 2 positions, and it's going to make an impact on 2 sides of the ball for the Browns. And, I got to say, it's nice not introing off the one with Cam Ward. It's very nice to get into a mock draft and not just say Cam Ward as my first words. But he's arguably the best player in the draft. He's number 1 on my personal big board. And you really do need to add some young cornerstones for this team because you've got Miles and you've got a bunch of older guys, Nick Chubb a little past prime. You got to add some youth to that group and really make it shine.
Yep. Then at 3, we've got the Giants taking Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. They could add Shedeur Sanders. I still don't know if I'm going to have them do that in my final mock, but I'm kind of, or in my personal final mock, I guess. But I'm kind of toying with that. I think it's still a possibility. But with the additions of Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson already this offseason, I think opting for the clear second best player in the class in Abdul Carter is the smarter move. Whether this means the Giants will be rotating edge rushers with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, or just moving away from one of them, more likely Kayvon, it's the smartest pick, just adding the best player available. It's tough to say that they should do that when they have so many holes on their roster, but I don't see them going another direction at this time.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely it's a trade-up spot because you don't know if it's going to be Shedeur and you don't know if they really you could move on from Kayvon and keep Abdul Carter and get the extra years of rookie, contract money, but also the prospect of having a rotating group that you see work so well within the division with the Eagles definitely is something that I'm sure they have got their eyes on. Which leads us to pick 4 with the Patriots, and we have them selecting Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. Now, we have them picking him as a tackle. There's speculation of the guard because of his arm length, but regardless of that, he's proven that he can play tackle in college, played it well, enough to be a top 4 pick. Let the guy play tackle.
Yeah, I've come around on it a little bit as a Patriots fan on him playing tackle. There's a whole lot of talk about evaluators and talent, like the talent people in the NFL being like, yeah, he's still a tackle. I don't care if his arms are short. But I'm hopeful that we either don't pick Will Campbell because he's not a fun pick, or that we take him and he's really good. So at 5, we have the Jaguars actually trading back, this time with the Bears, who trade up to get Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. Ben Johnson gets his guy, his running back, to orchestrate his offense around, and the Jaguars move back as they see 3 non-quarterbacks go in the top 4. They could opt for Mason Graham, and that's something that we've had them do quite a few times before, but with the offer on the table to add an additional second-rounder, I think they'd be happy sliding down to 10 and still taking some of the top talent in this class. I don't know if we've discussed it at all, but the kind of talk around the class is that the talent at 4 or 5 is going to be about the same as the talent at 15 or 20. There's a whole lot of pretty good guys.
Yeah.
It's just lacking on the top end outside of Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
Mm-hmm. And, as the Jaguars are kind of a spot where you could see them go Ashton Jeanty, we actually have them trading back because they want that additional comp. And it's a first-year head coach. I don't feel like... he just made Bucky Irvin work. I don't think he's that, running back centric where he needs this guy that's going to go top 5 in the draft. I feel like he definitely probably has some depth running backs on his board that he would be more than happy with. Then we get to the Raiders, who we have drafting Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri. Without Genty, and this has kind of been a spot where we go Genty or Will Johnson many moons ago. But with the offseason moves they've made, I think it's definitely going to be a Pete Carroll add to the trenches kind of draft for them. And so I think Armand Membu here being the best left here. I mean, you could say Mason Graham and you could add him alongside that defensive line, but you need to get some trenches on the help for the offense. So making that move here for Armand Membu is our pick.
Yep. Then at 7, we've got the Jets taking Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. He's honestly a bit of a luxury pick for the Jets with Quinnen Williams already in town, but Graham is definitely a best player available selection and would hopefully take some of the pressure off of Quinnen, as well as taking pressure off of the edges and improve a pass rush that desperately needs improving to help a defense that desperately needs help.
Yep. And then at pick 8 with the Panthers, we have them selecting Jalen Walker, the edge out of Georgia. Walker to the Panthers seems like one of the better landing spots for his skill set. It's often one of the most mocked ones for him as well because of that, pairing of his skill set with the team's needs. And, a team that really in the offseason put emphasis on, we're going to build through the, draft, we're going to build our defense up. They've kind of been a little dismissive of taking a wide receiver at 8. So I think, this just makes sense. It's going to be a good scheme fit and it's a good player going to a team that needs him.
Then at pick 9, we have the Saints taking Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. Shedeur falling to 9 is a dream scenario for the Saints. He's comfortable in the colors, and Derek Carr is considering surgery on his shoulder that would keep him out an extended period of time. It just kind of makes too much sense for them to want Shedeur, and that's considering that they could trade up to try to jump a couple of teams or be the team to jump to take him. I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen. I wouldn't be shocked to also see them pass on him and take a quarterback in round 2 or something like that, because there are some decent upside options like Jalen Milroe. But here, with Shedeur falling, I think it just makes sense for them to take him.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't really... Like the Spencer Rattler thing happened, right? So maybe they don't want to take another flyer in the second round, third round for a quarterback, and they just want to get the guy in the first round to be the guy after Derek Carr.
Nah, I'm taking a flyer in the second round every time. Every draft, give me a second round quarterback. One of them will work out.
At pick 10, we have the Jaguars after their trade back with the Bears, and we have them selecting Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. He's definitely a guy that is kind of being talked up very highly in this draft and even being considered for the Jaguars at pick 5. And so when it feels like the teams between 5 and 10 have a lot of needs outside of tight end, I think that Tyler Warren would still be here at 10. It's a safe trade back for them, and it's a nice, fun piece to utilize on offense, and it's kind of replacing Evan Ingram. And you could say, oh, maybe they let Evan Ingram walk because they don't plan on using the big slot like archetype as much. But I don't know. I think with how Liam Cohen ran the last team he was with the Buccaneers, big guys that can catch are kind of up on his board a little higher than maybe some other teams. So I have them going with Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I also don't think Tyler Warren is purely a big slot. I think he is a better tight end than Evan Ingram probably is, because Evan Ingram truly was a receiver in a tight end's body. Mm-hmm. I think Tyler Warren's a little bit more versatile than that. Yeah. But then at 11, we've got the 49ers taking Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. This is not a new pick or pairing for us. The 49ers defense needs a Dre Greenlaw replacement. They felt his absence in the Super Bowl 2 years ago with his injury, and they felt his absence anytime he wasn't on the team. They let him walk in free agency for some reason, and so taking Jihad would be a great replacement for him, a versatile guy to play, maybe rush sometimes, maybe drop back into coverage, play off ball. And I think Robert Saleh would really utilize him properly and revitalize the unit, get it back to what it once was.
Yeah, those defenses for the 49ers, like they are predicated off of having the 2 great linebackers that they had. And so you lose one and you're going to go ahead, you're going to draft the replacement up early because it's a thin linebacker class. Right at the top, there's great prospects, and then it kind of peters off. So at pick 12, we have the Cowboys selecting Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. The Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb, yes, and he's been great. And adding a piece next to him is kind of going to make them shine. I think Dak Prescott definitely needs another option. Um, I can't remember the guy's name right now. He was Turpin.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Devontae
don't think
Turpin.
you want Turpin getting the second most targets on that team. So you could take Tet here, and we opt to give them Tet because a lot of the top defensive players we've had go. So you can't be adding any top defensive player to really help on that side of the ball. You add Tet, you make sure you have a productive offense.
And speaking of top defensive players, here at 13, we have the Dolphins selecting William Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. With Jalen Ramsey being shopped and Will Johnson slipping, it's a pairing that just kind of makes too much sense. I know Jalen Ramsey doesn't play like pure boundary corner, and that kind of is Will Johnson's game, but an elite boundary corner that could use some help at the position, even if they weren't shopping Jalen Ramsey, I think just makes too much sense with his talent slipping down the board. I think Will Johnson is seeing a bit of prospect fatigue where people have been high on him since like last draft cycle when they were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, this kid from Michigan, next year he's going to be great." The next year he was great. Coming into this draft cycle, it's like, "Wow, this kid's great." And now it's like, "All right, we're like a year and 6 months into talking about how good Will Johnson's going to be." So, we're getting tired of talking about how good Will Johnson's going to be.
Yeah, it's also the injury stuff, missing most of the season. Like you get the little taste of, oh, he's good. He still is good at the start of the year, and then you kind of absence of mind. He's out of sight, out of mind, and he's slipping down boards because of that.
Yeah.
At pick 14, we have the Colts selecting Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. We love mocking tight end because it really makes sense for them. However, with Tyler Warren being the clear cut guy and us not being so rich on Colston Loveland, we have them taking Malachi Starks. He's a safety that can play down in the box if called upon. And I feel like their defense, it's been kind of known for being good. It's a little agey, and it's getting some young talent on that side of the ball that will make a big impact. When you can't get Tyler Warren, when you can't get a tight end to make that impact for you, I think it's definitely the pick is to move to defense.
Yeah. Pick 15, we have the Falcons taking Mykel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. The Falcons have needed pass rush since the dawn of time, but they can't seem to stop drafting unnecessary offensive weapons. This time around, maybe something will change, and they'll keep the Georgia product in state if he slips to them. We've gone through so much mocking of edge rushers to Georgia or edge rushers to the Falcons. It was last year. It was Dallas Turner to them
Mm-hmm.
at pick 8. And it was basically the whole draft cycle. We were like, we don't want to keep mocking Dallas Turner, but it makes too much sense. It's their biggest need. He's a great player. Give it to him. And we're doing it again here where we're like, at 15, Mykel's there. Give him Mykel. He's not. Give him Mike Green. Give him something, some sort of
Mm-hmm.
edge rush help. And maybe they'll just go with Jackson Dart.
Yeah. Who knows? Really just they said they're not going to trade Kirk. They drafted Jackson Dart. They trade Kirk. Who knows what happens, right? At pick 16, we have the Cardinals selecting Walter Nolan, the D tackle out of Ole Miss. Cardinals fans, you never left us any comments, so we're going to just keep mocking you defense all the way. And that lands here with Walter Nolan. We haven't really given him much first round love, but I feel like he's definitely gotten a lot more of that from people that aren't us. So here we are kind of coming around on him and hitting consensus, I'd say.
For sure. Then at 17, we've got the Bengals taking Jahdae Barron, defensive back out of Texas. The Bengals have had one of the worst defensive seasons in recent memory last year, and while this pick wouldn't fix every issue, it's a step in the right direction. Barron's a versatile DB to fit into a DB room that needs help literally everywhere. They've got Dax Hill playing corner, and he was drafted as a safety a couple years back. So taking somebody who's played corner, and I mean, Barron's also played safety a little bit too, but I think he would be more able to step into a bigger cornerback role than a guy who was basically a pure safety and then was just like, hey, you're fast, go play corner.
Yeah, I think Jahdae Barron I really see as like the Brian Branch of this class, where it's like, okay, we are very high on him, and like I would have thought Brian Branch could have been a first round pick that year that he came out, but he ended up falling to the second. Jedi Baron, I think the league might be coming around on that whole archetype of like, okay, we're going to draft a nickel because nickels are very important to a defense. And so I hope that he's not one of those same instances where he's going to slip down into the second round.
Yeah.
At pick 18, we have the Seahawks going with Matthew Golden, a wide receiver out of Texas. Now, the Seahawks need to add to the interior offensive line, but it's kind of the middle of the first round. It's not really a value spot to pick up an interior offensive lineman, and we have Matthew Golden on the board here. So we add that outside wide receiver for the team going forward, and I just did a scouting report on Matthew Golden. Go check that out if you haven't. Link will be popping up there, yeah. And yeah, I think, he's a great player, but my full thoughts will be in that video on him.
At pick 19, we've got the Buccaneers taking Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. They could use some production off the edge, and Shamar is a guy who we may not be as high on as I feel the league is. I feel like every time there's a super athletic pass rusher that comes out of the draft, they go a lot higher than I think they should. And Shamar Stewart feels like he's going to be the same thing. He blew combine testing out of the water, and Tampa scheduled a top 30 visit with him, showing their interest in him. I think if he's there, they would definitely strongly consider it. I don't know if they would feel the same with Mike Green on the board as he still is. But again, those athletic edge rusher prospects, I feel like they're just valued so highly internally in the league and that's just kind of a disconnect between us as creators and other creators as well. And then the league opinion is completely different on that type of prospect.
Yeah, it's production versus like the physical, the rawness of the player. And with Shamar Stewart, it's the rawness, it's the physical nature of it all. And then with Mike Green, it's like, okay, he was productive, yes, but it's a smaller school. Who's he really being productive against? It's not a bunch of SEC guys. It's not a bunch of future NFL players. So it's a weird balance that's struck. And I think a lot of, as you said, a lot of creators will focus on the production because it's tangible, whereas the intangibles, the speed, the measurements, they meet our threshold for arm length. That kind of stuff is way more heavily weighted in the NFL buildings.
Yeah.
At pick 20, we have the Broncos selecting Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC. Peanut Butters and Jellies, Netflix and Chill, and Omarion Hampton and Yards After Contact. These are just great pairings, staples, I'd say. And Omarion racked up 4 yards per carry after contact his last season in college. And that's a mark that Broncos running backs kind of barely met in the league last season for total yards per carry. So, yeah, the games are different. You're playing college, you're playing NFL ball, it's very different. But you're adding a player who can do something that your current running backs cannot do. And I'm going to draft that. And you add to the fact that Omarion Hampton can pass block and he can receive out of the backfield. You're going to be adding an all-around player to that room that is pretty scarce. That's a home run pick, in my opinion.
At 21, we've got the Steelers opting to trade back here, and this time it's the Chiefs moving up from 31 10-hole slots to take Kelvin Banks Jr., the offensive tackle out of Texas. The Steelers need a quarterback, but with the Chiefs calling, they're going to opt to trade back and stack capital and still probably land the third quarterback off the board. I don't see anybody moving up to take a quarterback before 31. Kelvin Banks would be competition for recent free agent acquisition Jalen Moore at tackle and would either win the starting job or be their plan for the future at the position, if not sliding somewhere else along the offensive line. The Chiefs showed that was kind of a weakness for them this past season, but they overcame the weakness mostly with devil magic and such. But with Kelvin Banks, I think they would shore up the weakest part of their team and just, again, become a very scary unit as they always seem to be.
At pick 22, we have the Chargers, and now that I'm looking at it, we had a nice little run of AFC West teams there after that trade up. Anyways, the Chargers, we have them selecting Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, and this is a guy that is a hardball guy, and he's helping on the trenches, something that they like to do. And, running back is a need that can be pushed into later rounds. You might really want to see them go running back here, but Omarion's gone. I feel like there's a little bit of a tier gap between Omarion and the next group. And not to say that the next group is bad, because you can get them very good value in that second round. I think that it's just a deep running back class. And so you're not going to be as, trigger happy with going and getting the third running back in the first round versus getting them in the second or the third.
At 23, we've got the Packers taking Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. They love ignoring their wide receiver needs. I mean, sorry, needs. They have four
Yeah.
wide receiver ones on their roster, and they love taking athletic prospects at other positions. Maxwell Hairston is an athletic prospect, and he is not a receiver. He checks all the boxes. This isn't just a pick to rag on the Packers drafting philosophy. They do genuinely need help at cornerback, especially with Jair's future in question. And Hairston kind of has, with his speed and with his physical ability, has a bit more upside than the other late first, early second grade guys like a Trey Amos or a Siobhan Ravel. I think that they would opt for Hairston over them for sure.
Yep. At pick 24, we have the Vikings here, and they are going to be trading back. It's kind of a popular move here for the Vikings. They don't have much draft capital, and it'll be the Patriots that are moving up to select Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, I think that this is a home run for the Patriots. I put out my scouting report. I really like Emeka Egbuka, and of course, you have been pounding the table requesting, oh, we need a tackle and we need a wide receiver with our first two picks. This would accomplish that, and you get it accomplished on day one. But Vikings fans, we're not leaving you out in the cold. We went ahead, we mocked where you might be, who might be on the board. So at that pick 38, we do have you selecting Donovan Jackson, the versatile offensive lineman out of Ohio State. That's a little bit of a spoiler for who might be going between now and then, but you'll see.
Then at 25, we've got the Texans taking Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Speak of the Ohio State guys, it's 3 and 2 picks. Another pairing we've done before. Simmons, without his injury, is one of the cleanest tackle prospects in this cycle, but because he is not without his injury, he would fall to them at 25. Again, it's a pairing we've done before. We've also done Kelvin Banks to the Texans, but the Chiefs jumped the Texans to move up to take Kelvin Banks because they believe in him more than the injury that Josh Simmons has. The Texans, I say this every single video because we keep mocking them the same thing, but they blew up their offensive line. They rebuilt the unit, or they are rebuilding the unit, and pick 25, in this class at least, is a pretty good spot to be in to take a good prospect, whether that's Kelvin Banks falling to them, whether that's Josh Simmons falling to them, or whether that's just taking a guard, because they don't have a ton of good guards either. But in this scenario, in this mock, Josh Simmons there, they'll take him.
At pick 26, we have the Rams, and we're going to have them going with Siobhan Ravel, cornerback out of ECU. Now, they're a team that could address the needs at guard, but as we've kind of had a little bit of a thing going on, we're letting the guard slip. I mean, it's interior offensive line. It's the first round. You kind of let those guys get picked up on day 2. And this team, in my opinion, desperately needs DB more than that. Now, you could say the value is more on the hands of that interior offensive line, but the need is in cornerback room. Re-signing Ahkello Witherspoon to 1-year deals constantly isn't really going to be the solution going forward. So getting a solidified DB in the back room, on the back end, and having a good secondary so you can actually move on from Ahkello Witherspoon. That's my plan for their future.
At pick 27, we have the Ravens ending Mike Green's slide, taking the edge rusher out of Marshall. They're a team that looked pretty good this past season, not a whole lot to complain about, and with the top 2 tight ends off the board, Mike Green falling as far as he did, this is kind of a no-brainer decision. We've had Mike Green mocked as highly as like top 15, top 13. I don't know exactly where we've sent him.
Yeah,
but
Falcons was probably always the first pick for it.
We've done Falcons, I'm sure, but I wasn't sure if there was somebody before them that we had done. But anywho, in this scenario, we have him slipping all the way down to the tail end of the first round, and the Ravens, who do need some pass rush help, they need tight ends because Mark Andrews is getting older and worse at playing football, but with the value here for Mike Green being a little bit higher than that of Mason Taylor out of LSU, I think they would definitely opt for Green in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, we really did have a major slip for Green in this, and there's, he's a smaller school guy, and I feel like I've been hearing a little bit of, some rumblings that they might just be slipping because Shamar Stewart is seen so highly, as I said, with that physicality versus that production. His production isn't against top-end players. He had a really nice clip, Senior Bowl, was it?
Yep.
But, yeah, I think it's just more predicated that the league sees things differently than we do. So whereas we have Mike Green going really early on in our original mocks where we are picking more with what we want to see, as we're predicting the draft, we got to kind of predicate to what the league does, and they let these guys fall. At pick 28, we have the Lions selecting Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Now, I would have loved to have Mike Green fall to 28, but at the same time, Brad Holmes loves Alabama players. It's probably his favorite FBS school, and he's going to go ahead. He's going to get an interior offensive lineman that is going to be plug and play and a starter. And even with, other edges on the board here, I think he's kind of just going to keep the offensive line, the stout unit that it has been, and look to add some edge players in the second half of the draft, especially with Mike Green, who would have been such a steal going right before. The grades on the other edge rushers might not be in that first round caliber.
No, let me ask you something real quick. You said that Alabama might be Brad Holmes' favorite FBS school. Is there an FCS school that he likes more than Alabama?
You know what? You got me there. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's an FCS school that he really does like over, like, just some, like, Ohio State or some, like, he's probably got some random ones, right? He's like, oh man, I really love this NDSU guy. Like, I really want Gray Zabel, but we're gonna go line. I'm sorry, Alabama man, you got to be above him.
All right, just looking for some clarity there.
Yeah,
At 29, we've got the Commanders taking Donovan Ezuraku, the edge rusher out of Boston College. The Commanders surprised basically everyone with their quick turnaround last season. They added Jaden Daniels and a new coaching staff and a couple other players through the draft, and just kind of flipped and became one of the better teams in the league, made it all the way to the NFC Championship. Sorry,
Yep.
was looking at the picks, making sure that that they were fourth to last and not fifth to last. Anywho, he would come in, Ezuraku would, and be a rotational edge alongside the former top 5 pick in Clelin Ferrell and brother of Neil, Dorrance Armstrong. This room is weak, and Ezuraku is the best player available to add to the room.
I don't think he's his brother. I feel like there's definitely got to be some lineage between that.
No.
Okay. Right.
And Lance is also related.
Okay.
I've heard Louis is in the family too.
Whoa. Getting into pick 30 with the Bills here, we have them going with Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. Now, they lost a cornerback when it was crunch time, and their defense fell apart. Adding Trey Amos, you get a corner who can play opposite of Christian Benford, who is really good, and just because he gets injured doesn't make him not bad. He's not replacing Christian Benford; he's replacing everybody else in that room. And should any more issues arise with Benford, you have Amos waiting in the rings to be that number one corner when no one else really was able to be this past season.
Yeah, they asked Kaiir Elam to do that, and he said no, and then they traded him. So
yeah,
hopefully Amos would be better than Elam. Anyways, at 31, we have the Steelers following their trade down with the Chiefs, taking Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. After that trade down, they still end up with their pick of the second tier of QBs, whether that be Dart or Milroe. And Dart seems to have more love in the draft community than Milroe, but Milroe was invited to the draft, so I could see his name being called on night one, especially just with the insane athleticism he possesses, the running ability with the football. Milroe's upside is higher, but his floor is, I think, lower than maybe any other prospect in the class. And you've got, Milroe could be a running back for them and the whole Justin Fields experiment. But I think the fact that they worked with Fields could speak to their ability to use a rushing quarterback. They benched him because they didn't want to pay the extra pick, not because it wasn't working. So if they're like, hey, we could do even more of this, then maybe they do go Milroe. But I still think they're infatuated with Jackson Dart. Apparently they've got a first-round grade on him, which is just insane work. But we'll see how the draft plays out. I just think the Steelers, Rodgers or no, need a quarterback really bad.
Yeah. At pick 32 and the last of this mock draft, we have the Eagles, and we have them selecting Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman out of NDSU. And he's adding a versatile piece to the trenches, and this is really like they can't keep getting away with this moment because, damn it, they can't. Gray Zabel should go way earlier, but as we said, we're moving these small school guys down on the board because it's something that the league does. They go raw athleticism and the big name SEC schools, and he's gonna fill a need. They lost Mekhi Becton, and he could slot well into that role if he wins it. If not, you have a flexible backup offensive lineman for the entire unit in case any injuries arise.
Yeah, and I think that just about wraps up this final mock draft. We will have our own personal finals dropping sometime right before the draft, likely. I'll be putting them out on Twitter and in the community notes here on YouTube. So stick around and check those out. Let us know what you think about this mock draft, how you would feel if this is how the actual draft went, and leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Respond to our personal final mocks. Tell us how stupid we are, and
Yes,
then
please.
respond with your own final mock, and we'll tell you how stupid you are.
Yeah, we'll have a nice, open loop of conversation going. Mock draft posted, and then up at the top, it's going to be, "We hate your mock draft. Take that down." And then us saying, "Where's yours?" And then, "Oh, yours." And then, "We hate that." And then ours. And it's just going to be a nice continuous loop. We'll do it up until the draft. As the ween hours go by, and we're just itching, we're going to be just doing that constantly.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. Deuces.
Deuces.